Well, welcome here. This is a different format than the normal LinkedIn Live that we run most Fridays. For the first time ever, Jordan and I are speaking to a guest in a live room where there's, 30 people or so hanging out watching us as we have this conversation. So big thank you to Christine and the Practice Connection event conference for having us here live to have this conversation today. As some of you might know, Jordan and I get together most Fridays to talk about this idea of doing less to do more, and really talk about how some of the things that we think about productivity are kind of wrong or outdated, and how sort of that grind mindset isn't always the thing that actually takes us further. And that there are ways that we can simplify, and there are ways that we can do less, simplify, and focus that actually help us have an even bigger impact. So we are excited today to have Mike McLenehan join us for this live discussion. And Mike is the CEO and founder of McLenehan and Associates,
Yep.
correct? Jordan and I both met Mike. I want to say that's like 2 years ago now. Like it's
Yep.
a while
Is it
ago now.
two?
We were at an event that Brandish and the Work Time Revolution group out of Toronto were doing around the 4-day work week. And so Mike and myself and Lee from Brandish, as well as Joe, were sort of on this panel discussing this idea of a work week, of making this shift to a 32-hour or 4-day work week on the setup. Really great discussion. Jordan was there as well, and we made lots of good connections through that event. We sort of kept in touch with a few folks along the way. So, Mike, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed talking about the 4-day work week and how that kind of differentiates us as a firm.
Absolutely. And so maybe just for a little bit of context for people that are joining us on LinkedIn, tell us just a little bit about your business, what you do, so we have that context getting in.
Yeah, we are a full service accounting firm. We do year-end financial statements, corporate income tax returns, personal returns. We have a bookkeeping team as well as a fractional CFO and virtual controllership service. And so in terms of our server services and offering to clients, it's consistent, or in some ways can be very different than other accounting firms. I would say that one of the ways that we're sort of differentiated is in terms of staff experience and the experience that our people have. I would say that right now we're the only accounting firm in Winnipeg that would operate under a 4-day 32-hour work week throughout the entire year, which includes what's typically known as busy season or personal income tax season, or the first 6 months.
So that leads us really nicely into what we want to talk about. And I think it's like a fascinating and wonderful example, in particular, knowing that we're talking to practitioners today who are in billable hours environments. Accounting is often that billable environment, although I think we're going to see a shift in what that looks like in a number of organizations. We see marketing firms already making that shift to less billable based architecture clients. They're having those conversations as well. But we would love to hear, maybe to start, a little bit of what prompted that initial thought of maybe we want to experiment with this 4-day work week, and this idea of maybe we can do less hours, but
Yeah,
still be just as effective.
sure. I think for us, and maybe one of the things that people sometimes misunderstand about our 4-day work week is that people might sort of hold the belief that it's we were similar to other accounting firms where our team was working 40, 50, 60 hours a week during our busiest season. And then we flipped a switch and then went to 32 and somehow managed that change. I was a student, I worked at a traditional public practice accounting firm that operated under that sort of old model, right? Where it's March and April, we're going to be here in the evenings, we're going to be here on Saturdays, it's going to be a ton of hours, but we've got to do it because of the deadline. Or even just the first 6 months of the year, it's we experience this work compression and surge of additional work. It's going to be a ton of hours, but we believe in work-life balance, and so we're going to give you Fridays off in July and August to kind of balance that up, or make up for that. I grew up in the environment, as I was sort of becoming a CPA. And so when I started my firm in 2013, we very much operated under that same model, right? I just sort of held the belief this is what accounting firms do, right? We just work overtime, we work hours. Culturally, this is it. In 2015, my son was born. And for me, I recognized that I could no longer get to 5 o'clock PM and then just keep working till 9, because I wanted to be able to go home and see him. And then also recognizing that it was unfair for me to walk out of the office and say okay guys, make sure you get everything done. I'm gonna go home to my life and my family while you're here working. in 2015, I sort of instilled in our firm a policy of just like no overtime. Hey, like let's just figure like how to get all the work done within the framework of a normal 40-hour work week, right? And so I think that that caused us to become really intentional about the way we work and the time that we waste and like how we kind of plan projects. I think it caused us to be intentional about the types of projects that we take on and the way that we capacity plan in terms of like staffing and making sure that we have adequate members on our team to be able to like do that work. And so we kind of went from like that old model where it was like overtime, long hours, and attendance on weekend to 40 hours a week. And sure enough, like we got everything done. We completed everything. It was done by the filing deadline. It didn't create like any concerns or failure to meet expectations like when it came to our clients. In 2017, some of the reading that I was doing was kind of talking about like how like you and I like as people, we maybe have like 6 to 7 hours of productive time in a day. I think you talked
Mhm.
about like how it's actually like probably a bit less
Yes,
than
or
that.
at least that's what's happening in reality in some
Yeah.
places, yes.
And so the reading that I was doing was talking about like how like if you make a person work more, they don't necessarily get more done. The work just expands to be able to like meet the capacity in which that work exists. And so in 2017, I changed our firm from a 5 day, 8 hour like workday to a 5 day, 7 hour workday. We moved from 40 hours a week to 35 hours a week. Everybody had one extra hour a day. And again, like we got everything done. We met the demands of our clients, and we like each of these years, like we grew as a firm despite the fact that like we were cutting back our hours. And then in 2022, like that's when we made the move to the 4 day work week, and just kind of recognizing that it's no secret that there's a shortage of accountants across North America and Canada right now. And we're all competing for the same pool of accountants, the same pool of people to hire using the exact same experience and the exact same job advertisement. We talk about our firms, we describe them to people in like the same way. And it's sort of done some research and taken an interest in the 4 day work week. For us moving from 5 7 hour days to 4 8 hour days, that's not like a difference of 50 hours to 32. That's a difference of 35 to 32. And so it's like, I looked at that in terms of like, is it feasible for us to give up 3 hours per week and still be productive and profitable? And so I presented that as a concept to my staff. And I said, listen, like, I'm really interested in this 4 day work week idea. I presented it as a concept to them. Let's talk about this and like, let's make a decision together about it as a team. Of course, like they said, yeah, give me a 4 day work week like all day long. But I was really, really impressed with how quickly that conversation turned from the benefit that they would receive to like how they would reorganize their work in a way that they could get everything done and meet demand and meet deadlines within the framework of a 4 day, 32-hour work week. 2022, we grew, and we typically grow at like a rate of 20% per year. Even though like we've kind of like reduced or scaled back those hours, we've been able to continue to grow. And I think that part of the reason that we're able to grow is because the 4 day work week is so attractive as a benefit that it makes hiring for us like really, really easy because we're different, right? Like we get to be differentiated as the firm that provides a 4 day work week to their team. We're not talking about the same role in the same way with the same hours and the same experience. We're the 4 day work week firm. It's been great for us in terms of hiring. For me as the owner, like I would much rather have a productive person in the seats 4 days a week than an empty seat 5 days a week.
That makes a ton of sense.
I just want to key in. There's so many times I hear people who are willing to take this step back to do less to get more of what they want, being tied to a life event like birth of a child, new partnership, new something. And I think it's really cool. We had a story in the room here today about a leader who would horse around with their employees and create a culture of if the leader can do it, everyone can do it. And instead of you taking that step back, I had this life change, and so I'm going to take a step back to change my life while you all work in the same operating structure. I love that you took it as what would it look like for us all to work under the same structure, which reflects what I want in my life.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hard work worth doing of there is a way to accomplish a lot of these things, but you take that step back, you need to ask what's important, and you have to go through like what will it mean for us? And how can I, the leader, show the same energy as the business wants to have? That leader energy equals business energy so often.
Yeah.
I'm sure, I mean, you've seen
Yep.
this in a lot of your training too. An engaged leader, a leader who shows up, who walks the walk and talks the talk, is the one who's going to build the company and the organization that's going to have that same energy that goes with them.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, like, and I know you're both familiar with this, but it's like there's this concept. It's called Parkinson's law,
Mhm.
which kind of like talks about how the demand for a resource will expand to meet the availability of that resource. And so when you think of Parkinson's law in the context of time, if a person has 8 hours to complete a project, it'll take 8 hours. If a person has 14 hours to complete a project, it'll take 14 hours. Their need for time is going to expand to meet the availability of that time. And I think like where firms sometimes get unhealthy is because the like a poor guardrail or just like a lack of boundaries, like in terms of the day, you've got a person who like works like on something for 12 or 14 hours in a day to get it done, probably could have been done in 8, like if they were constrained by like a regular work. We don't experience, like, you would think that it's like you cut your hours by like 20% or whatever. Like, does that mean you're doing 20% less revenue? Does that mean you're like failing on 20% of projects? And we just don't experience that within our firm.
Yeah. Did you have folks that struggled with that shift? Like, was it easier for some folks, harder for others? Did you have to manage that?
That's fair. I would say no, like not on our existing team. I think people were kind of used to the concept of like you don't log in the evenings, like you don't kind of like stay late and stuff, right? And so it's like I think it was fun like the first week to kind of talk to people about like what did you do with a whole extra day, right? Like a whole extra day of white space where you don't have work and it's not the weekend, so you don't have your kids. There's just one new day per week. Like, what did you do at that time? But it's like I don't know that like um we've experienced like struggle in terms of like people like um wanting to work extra hours and stuff. I think, and that's not our desire as a firm. Like it's like if we have members of our team that we're sort of being pushed outside of this constraints of our like regular like work day, like that kind of thing, that like the issue is like how do we solve that then through like staffing and like that kind of
How do we
thing. And so
support?
yeah, like I'm thinking about like a couple examples where it's like the expansion of work has led or is leading to us making additional hiring so that we can normalize like that person's experience that like maybe feels compelled to like step up and step out of.
I know I worked previously for a consulting firm where we started by taking half day Fridays off in the summer, moved to full day Fridays in the summer, and then half day Fridays the rest of the year.
Yeah,
Probably could have just done full day
yeah,
Fridays, would
yeah.
have been fine. But I found that especially when we were doing the full day Fridays in the summer, everybody wanted to feel good about the fact that they were taking their Fridays because it was something we only did for part of the year.
Yeah.
And I really found that, if I was feeling good about my workload, but Jordan was like, oh, I might have to do a couple hours on Friday. Like, I was like, how can I help you? Because like I'm going to take Friday off. I want you to also be, I don't want you to be going to come in. Like, how can I support you with your workload? Like, what can we do to make this work? People were very willing to jump in and help so that we can continue to make and sort of prove that that 4 day work.
And that's really it. Is if you build that play to work and you build the trust in each other, you can do things like
Mm.
scale time back and ask less of each individual and still ask more of the team. Because then one team member is having a great week,
Yeah.
they can go pitch in with everybody else, and they know that the next week when they're having maybe not the best one, that friend at work, not in the true sense of a friend, but
Yep.
that work is going to be able to pitch in for them too.
When you're dealing with constraints, like you need to be like intentional about like which work am I doing, which work am I like delegating, like what am I involving other people on, like what am I putting systems in place so that other people can manage it. Like if you sort of absorb like the tasks and like those things to fulfill like that need to be fulfilled, and maybe it's not like the ideal work for like you in your position, like when you're just adding tasks on top of tasks on top of tasks, and maybe like not like delegating or being supported like by a broader team, I think that can lead to dysfunction. And so we oftentimes like have conversations like internally about just like this is pushing you maybe to your limits or to a place like of discomfort or like dysfunction. Like either who can we involve in this process so that like you're in a better, more comfortable like experience, or like what hiring do we need to do
Mhm.
to be able to like satisfy that need so that like the burden doesn't fall on you and then you're not personally struggling as a result, right?
And I would imagine that this forced individuals and the organization as a whole to really think about how they're spending their time, right? Like those recurring meetings that happen every week, month, like, are those absolutely necessary?
Yeah.
Can we change the timing of those? But also, I know you've spoken before, or in that panel that we were on, Joe spoke about the idea of I think it's the Pareto principle, right, where 20% of your actions drive 80% of results, and really doubling down on like what are the things that produce the most results. And you gave an example in a presentation with me here earlier today about really focusing in on that fractional CFO
Hmm.
work,
Yeah.
which is obviously very high value work. What are some of the shifts that you had to make in order to make sure that people were spending time on the right things and you were focusing on the right things so the business could build even as people were spending this time?
Yeah, like I would say like where that's working well, like would be like when people have like clear definitions on like here's my piece of like this puzzle, here's my role, here's my responsibility. I would say like some of the areas that we've kind of wrestled like with that service is that there's just like a lack of clarity on who should be doing like these things, or like a like maybe a hesitance to like delegate like what we're kind of like learning a process that can kind of create constraints. I know that like recently, like we've had conversations about how like like a 4-day work week like works for us, but like you're serving
Yeah.
clients that like work a 5-day work week. Like
I'm sure that's a question other people
yeah,
have
like
too. It's like, well, how does that work?
and,
What does it
and
take?
and so recently we've had conversations specifically about that fractional CFO service where some members of that team would work Monday through Thursday, some members of that team would work Tuesday through Friday, and then that would kind of like provide coverage on those 2 days because I know that for me, I sometimes feel compelled to, like, step in and be involved in, like, a meeting for, like, the kinda thing on Friday, like, to meet the needs of our customers. I know that we've got a team member that also feels the need to provide service on those days, and so issues are gonna come up, right?
Yeah.
And that's just like you need to proactively look to solve those things, and so I think that that's one of the things we've talked about recently is maybe modifying, like, work week so that they're still getting the benefit of the 4-day work week, but we've got coverage on both those days. Those clients aren't licensing our service as a result of a benefit that we're providing to our team.
I really love that. And it's one of the hills I die on with helping entrepreneurs is we kind of built entrepreneurship up to be this individual sport somehow. Yet it's a team sport building a business. And
Yeah.
you've given so many examples of you might jump in to help, someone else might do this. So I'd be curious, like how can we help more people realize like it's okay to not be able, like, not have the skills, the capacity, the ability to do everything, and it's okay to bring the people in to not have to do it all yourself. How do you make those decisions of, you know what, I could do this, but it's better off if I have this person do it, or have help from over here or from outside, so that we can get the momentum and the movement we want in the organization instead of stalling us all out with a bunch of things that need to get done, and we feel like we got to do them all ourselves.
That's an area like where I've definitely struggled for sure. Like there's aspects of my firm that it's like I still do that I like probably like should not. I think that's always going to be something that you're going to wrestle with like as a business owner, like and a firm owner, because like as you continue to develop your team into a deep and narrow team, like rather than something that's just flat that like lives underneath you, that involves like having to involve more people and processes and
Yeah.
delegating some of those things down. We've just completed like a hire for a director of people and culture position for our firm. Like I'm focused on internal development of our team and our experience and making sure that our coaching programs are functioning really, really well. But for 12 years, I've been the head of human resources, right? And I would say like I do that really well because I'm passionate about my firm and I care enough to try really hard at doing it. But for me, recently, I feel like we've kind of reached an inflection point as a business where me doing that on a fractional, like 15 to 20% basis versus the person with a great skill set in that area doing it on a 100% basis, it's actually like a barrier to our growth.
Totally.
And so, what's the benefit that you realize from like removing that barrier? And then, what could your life look like on the other side of solving that problem? And so, I'm really excited about that hire. Even just the process of going through that hire, 20 to 30 hours, like to like identify and screen candidates and interview and make a hire. Like that process highlighted the need for that person, right? It just kind of reinforced it as part of that experience. And so I think it's something that business owners will always face or always deal with. I know that for me, I keep track of my time on a daily basis. And what I do is I actually track my time not based on the task that I'm performing, but on the role that I'm fulfilling within our
I love that.
organization. And so if I'm spending a lot of time as an operations manager or an HR manager or sales and business development, if that's 300, 400, 5 hours, 500 hours like over the course of the year, then that informs which role should we be hiring for next that then like takes me out of that and like frees up capacity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is sort of a unique situation because we actually have a live audience, which we normally don't have in the room with us. I wonder if we should just throw it out there to see if anybody has any questions before we close off on this conversation. I know we could ask a zillion more questions and keep it
Absolutely.
going, but does anybody have a question? If you do, we'll repeat it up here so that we can make sure that the podcast captures it. Yeah.
You rolled out 4-day work week, but just compensation.
So just for our listeners online, the question was, when you rolled out this 4-day work week, did you adjust compensation?
That's a great question. I think that that's like a important part of this policy for us at least. The purpose of the policy wasn't like save money. We're going to save 20% of our salaries and wages by paying 20% less to our employees. Our team works under a 4-day, 8 hour, 32-hour work week. And we pay consistent with or slightly above like salaries and wages in our industry. We're a performance-based like organization or performance-driven organization, not hours. In terms of the projects we do, like those projects have like a value assigned to them that although we monitor hours, like we don't necessarily connect those hours to like the way that we're invoicing those customers. And so I pay my team based on like fulfillment of like the objective and the tasks that we need to complete to be able to provide great service to our clients. And as long as those things are happening, like they can be paid appropriately, like for their role. And so we were people's hours, their compensation didn't change. Their goals actually didn't change in terms of like what they needed to accomplish during the year. And what we found was that they were able to satisfy those like goals or those projects they needed to complete within the framework of that 32-hour work week. And so there was no requirement to adjust compensation. Anything like I would say many of our team, because we try to be really forthcoming about financial data like in the firm, they probably have a pretty good understanding of how the work that they do and the revenue that they generate informs compensation. And so our team has the ability to influence their compensation by making sure that they're completing a volume of work. That volume of work piece has not been an issue for us the way that you would expect.
There was one just on this because I remember specifically from the panel you were all
Yeah.
on talking about how when you made that switch back, it actually helped you highlight your best employees even better because they were the ones who were innovating to find the ways to
Yeah.
what is not serving us. What are the extra 8 hours that we're cutting away, or three in your case,
Yeah.
was waste
Yeah.
or not needed, or we could do it better, different way.
Sure.
And those became the people who could drive like, okay, here's how we get the same goals or better goals in the 32 hours. And the people who could do it became your bad people. And
Yeah.
they'll probably never want to leave
Yeah.
because where else are they going to get like that?
I think that's like not wanting to leave is an important thing to highlight there. Like it's certainly in terms of attraction of employees, because it's such a huge benefit, it's such a key differentiator, makes attracting employees really, really easy or easier for us. I would say it's really retention of employees as well. Um, and it's because it's such a significant benefit, right? If you were entertaining two jobs, one for say it was $90,000 a year in like each of those two positions, and one of them you'd have every Friday off, and like let you work 5 days a week, right? That feels like a no-brainer. But it's even if you're an employee like at a place that has a 4-day work week and you receive like an enticing offer from like another potential opportunity, you've got to weigh like whatever the benefits of that other opportunity are against like what you're losing. As human beings, like we experience like what's called loss aversion. And what I mean by that is that it's like we experience loss 3 times more than we experience gain, right? And so that means like for a member of our team, the benefit that they would receive from leaving needs to be 3 times or more than the benefit that they're, which is like 4-day work week. And so I find that's been a huge benefit for us, like in terms of retention. We don't have turnover, I would say, like due to burnout, like due to exhaustion. we exist in an industry where people are being contacted by opportunities because there is a shortage of accountants. And those opportunities really need to be pretty spectacular, for a person to be motivated to leave.
Okay.
The question was for say recurring projects. Is it based on hours or hours of work, and how does that impact that? That service is actually the subscription based service based on that client or that customer activating certain aspects of that service and certain things that we need to fulfill. And so it's not driven by hours. So our 4-day work week doesn't hinder that. It's really just driven based on outcomes and objectives for the clients. And as long as we're meeting those outcomes and objectives, we're living into that contract and that summary of work for that client. Yeah. Okay. So the question from the audience was, do those projects get assigned to a team member, or do I do the work myself? And no, the answer is this is actually a dedicated team within my firm that includes me acting as the fractional CFO. We have a number of CPAs that work as virtual controllers. We have a big team that deals with day-to-day transactions. In some cases, we pay bills for customers. In some cases, we manage receivables for customers, depending on the level of advisory support that the client asks for. We have a series of structured meetings that occur throughout the month, but it really is a team-based approach. It's not one individual responsible for a client. It's a group of people collaborating to manage that client and their needs well.
Such an interesting.
So
before we wrap up, we like to do a little one insider action. So if there's something you can take from this, in addition to all the great insights, but something you can take and do this week. And I can kick us off. I usually write a bunch of notes down, so I'm ready and give you some time to think about it. But after sitting through this morning, I wanted to just give a simple way. We've all talked about how can you do less? How can you take things off your plate? How can you leverage time to create more content? And so something I've shared with a lot of people before, and hopefully will help all of you, is this super simple little framework. So if you have something you want to get off your plate, it's called do, repeat, delegate. So you do it. And if you're really savvy, you can record yourself doing it so you can create internal documentation and potentially even external content, which then creates a process which will make it repeatable that you can give to somebody else and know it will be done in the same way you did it, versus bringing someone in and saying, I need this thing done, and they try to do it their own way, and you have to go back and forth and train them to where you want to get them. So do, repeat, scale. Test it with the thing that's on the bottom of your list that you know shouldn't be on your plate but still is, and see where it gets you this week.
Great. I think one of the insights that would stand out specifically from this conversation, I really liked the comment around the loss aversion side of things, and maybe thinking a little bit about for your organization and the workplace culture you're building and the perks and benefits of working in your organization. What would people really be losing by leaving? Would they really be losing something? And if they wouldn't, I mean, you're at risk from a retention standpoint. So what are those things that they would be losing by not continuing to work with your team might be something to reflect on.
Or what they'd be losing that you would see as a positive, right? It's if leaving your organization means I'm losing working on Saturdays for 2 months, that's a net positive for them. And so don't put that person in a position where what they're losing is actually the gain.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Awesome. It's you have anything else you want to share before we cut off?
No, I think that's great. I'm always really happy to talk about the 4-day work week and the way that we implemented that and how that's going. People can do I do try to be an open book about this stuff, and if people wanted to reach out to me on LinkedIn with questions, you can really connect with me. That's the platform where I kind of live on social media, and I try to be pretty interactive with people there.
Great. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Christine. Thank you for letting us run this little experiment live at your event.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.